Great. Okay, so we're here today to talk a little bit about the Best Starts for Kids Childcare Subsidy Program. We'll be sharing a high level of what the program looks like, our timeline, and additional details around eligibility. Feel free to ask questions throughout. You don't need to wait till the end. You can either just jump in and unmute yourself to ask those questions, or you can use the chat feature or reactions to raise a hand, whatever works best for you and makes you feel most comfortable. And I'll just ask Katie and Steph if we can all sort of co-monitor the waiting room and let folks in if they arrive. Next slide, please. So we like to ground everything in our Best Starts for Kids vision and mission, which are really about happy, healthy, safe, and thriving kids and community. What that looks like to us is babies in our community born healthy, our kids being able to thrive, and the young people in our community growing up to be happy, healthy, and successful adults. Next slide, please. We're also deeply committed to equity, especially by race and place. We tend to defer to a definition of equity defined by our Children Youth Advisory Board. They've developed a statement about equity and what it means to move in that direction consistently, as well as some questions that we can use to sort of interrogate our work, our policies, our decisions. One of the quotes that I like to pull out of that is this one: equity is an ardent journey toward well-being as defined by the affected. And that is really the approach that we're trying to take with this subsidy program. Next slide, please. So we're going to provide an overview of the Best Starts for Kids Childcare Subsidy Program, and I'll hand it over to Katie.
Thank you. So new to the Best Starts for Kids program in 2022 is a childcare subsidy program. This represents a $160 million investment over the 6-year life of the levy. This is a historic investment in childcare and the largest Best Starts for Kids program at this point. This childcare subsidy program is designed to support families who are just above income for the state's Working Connections childcare program. But it's also meant to fill gaps in eligibility that the Working Connections program leaves in our community. And I'll speak a little bit more about that later. We anticipate that this subsidy will provide funding for about 2,000 children and their families each year. It will, the design of a subsidy is to pay a child care provider on behalf of an eligible family, and it's determined on a sliding scale. So the closer that a family gets to the income cutoff, the smaller the percentage of their care is being paid for. And we have been working over the last 2 years to partner and be in close communication with key constituents to understand the regional needs for childcare, but also how we really closely align with our existing public subsidies so that we are really leveraging additional and increased access for families rather than duplicating existing programming. Next slide. So we worked really closely with a task force. The Children and Families Strategy Task Force was the one that recommended bringing back a regional childcare subsidy program in King County. And then we worked really closely with a work group last year to design our request for proposal and really center ourselves in the values of the program that we wanted to build. And so this subsidy program centers the needs of families. It aims at eliminating disparities in childcare access and being really intentional about identifying and addressing those disparities. It intends to provide seamless and low barrier user experience for both providers and families and the community organizations that may be supporting either. We really want, through the subsidy program, to demonstrate a commitment to the well-being of childcare providers. We want to be sure that that policies are making sure that they are adequately compensated for the care that they are providing, and that they have a process that that feels supportive and respectful to them. We know that this is a new program and that we are trying something new, and we're getting a big program off the ground. So we are prioritizing continuous quality improvement, and we're learning quickly and integrating our learnings into improved process for families and providers. We intend to fill eligibility gaps so that we're expanding equitable access for families, again, rather than duplicating existing programming. And we also recognize that the childcare landscape has been very dynamic over the last several years, and we in some ways hope it continues to be dynamic. We hold out hope for major state and federal investments in childcare that may completely change how we as a county respond and support our community through this childcare subsidy. So we intend to be dynamic and able to adapt to that changing landscape. Next slide. So for the eligibility for this subsidy, families may receive the subsidy if they live in King County, if they have one or more children age 12 or under, or ages 13 to 17 that have a disability. They must be using a licensed childcare provider. So this is a childcare, could be a childcare center, could be a licensed family home childcare, or a school age only program that is licensed with the state. We are encouraging families that appear to be eligible for Working Connections, the state subsidy program, to apply for that first. And if they're denied for that program, then they can apply for this subsidy program. And that they fall within below 85% of state median income. And what that means is about $91,000 for a family of 4 in King County. Providers may receive the subsidy if they're licensed in good standing with the state. And at this time, we are working to be able to include a couple of groups of caregivers, probably in year 2 of the subsidy. And those would include family, friend, and neighbor caregivers. So this might be auntie or a neighbor who watches children, but is not required to be licensed by the state. We're actively figuring out how to pay those caregivers as well through the subsidy, and intend to do that probably in year 2. One thing you'll notice on the eligibility list for families is that there is no activity requirement. So many of the existing public subsidies require that both caregivers, both parents, both adults in a household, if they must be working a certain number of hours a week or in school or some training program to have access to childcare. And in this program, we were very intentional about leaving that activity requirement out, so that one of our core beliefs is that childcare is good for children and families if that's what the family wants for their child, and that we want to make sure that there is no test whether a family deserves childcare if that's what they want for their family. And so we anticipate this really expanding access for families who haven't been able to meet that activity requirement, or if they're looking for work but need childcare to look for work. We anticipate serving a lot of families who have not been eligible before. And then next slide. Another really clear intention and value of both our task force and our RFP work group was going back to one of those values of identifying and actively trying to eliminate disparities in access to care. And so the priority populations identified here are community members that we know have faced disproportionate barriers to accessing affordable childcare in our community. And so we are supporting and prioritizing the communities you see on this list with increased outreach, with a robust and large family access and support team that can that can support families and meet them where they're at for what they need in terms of completing the application, enrolling in the program, finding care that meets the needs of their families. And so we are, we are really designing the program with our communities that have faced disproportionate barriers to access to childcare in our community. Next slide.
So as Katie was mentioning, we really want to be able to support all eligible community members to apply for the subsidy. So we've partnered with these organizations to be part of the Family Access and Support team. We have Scholar Fund, who is our subsidy administrator, but they are also a part of the Family Access and Support team. We have White Center Community Development Association, which also has a staff member who's going to be a part of the FAS team. A for Apple, Learning Center, Voices of Tomorrow, and Child Care Resources. So these are all the organizations that are going to really help us provide that case management support for families who may need help with enrollment or finding an eligible childcare provider, but also maintaining the subsidy throughout the time that they're given that. So this support might really look different for different families. That might look like a home visit to collect documents, or it might be looking up different childcare centers that are eligible for the subsidy, or just help walking through the application. So this really brings us as to where we're at right now, which is that the application is open, and we are hoping that families are visiting our website, which is bskchildcare.org, to submit a really quick 5-minute eligibility form to really help us determine if this family will be eligible for the full application. So please help us out, spread the word, and have folks in your community fill out this eligibility form if they think that they would be eligible for the subsidy. And even if they don't think that they would be eligible, we can go ahead and determine that on our end. Families who have submitted their eligibility form will be, eligible families who have submitted their eligibility forms will be communicated with towards the end of September, early October, and they will be invited to complete a full application. This is really the time when our Family and Access and Support team will come in and help those families who need help gathering their documents or finishing that much longer, complex application. And they will have that one-on-one case management support. And then in October, we're really hoping that the verification and enrollment happens for the application so that they will be able to receive their subsidy payments starting in November. So again, this is a really great time and opportunity to really spread the word among your networks about this application being open, and that the first step in the application process is filling out a 5-minute eligibility form, which will let us know that this family is interested, and we will do the work in the background to figure out if this family is eligible for the application. And if they are, we will invite them to fill out a full application. We have outreach materials available to you all in 10 different languages. So we have the link included here, but you can also reach out to us if you want these documents via PDFs. Basically, we just really appreciate your outreach. So Katie would love to hand it over to you to see if there are any other forms of outreach that we'd like to highlight right now.
It looks like we have a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and read those if that's okay. From Alaric, how are you coordinating with Seattle and Child Care Resources or others who also provide subsidies? Are undocumented families eligible? Any idea how quickly these 2,000 slots may fill up? Were there priority populations in order of importance, or are all equal priority? What if a family needs assistance but can't get to one of the community partners? Do you want me to go through these one at a time, or do you want to just hop in, Katie and Steph?
Sorry, I just was jotting down questions as you were talking.
They're great questions. Thank you.
I'm happy to just kind of go in order. Jessica, do you want to speak to how we're coordinating with Seattle and CCR? or do you want me to speak to that?
No, I'm more than happy to speak to that. So we've been coordinating closely with the City of Seattle as well as Department of Children, Youth and Family for really a couple of years now, as we got ready for Best Starts for Kids renewal, hoping that we would have the chance to do this work, and then really in earnest since since the levy passed. And we are sort of in constant communication with the city around CCAP in particular, and Seattle Preschool Program and other opportunities and how we coordinate. Right now we have some overlapping eligibility, and that was intentional to minimize disruption to families who are currently receiving CCAP. As we move forward in the program, it's very likely that City of Seattle may change their cap. They may change some of their eligibility requirement. What we want to do is try to make sure that we're coordinating together so that as many families as possible and the families with the greatest need are being reached. And so that's not sort of a one and done process. It's one that sort of requires constant calibration, especially as we have additional data, but it's an ongoing process. We're also in close communication and partnership with Child Care Resources. They're one of our family access and support providers, and they're also the coordinator for this program. So they bring together all of the different components for training and support and really building that kind of connective tissue that can make this one program, even though it's housed sort of throughout agencies in the county. And then I think in terms of other folks who are offering subsidies and scholarships, we want to continue to have those conversations. If there are municipalities who want to be a part of sort of coordinating here and we can help them leverage their dollars, we want to continue to do so. And so sort of ongoing conversations about what this looks like. I think as we continue to have more data about the demand that we receive and in what regions, those will be really helpful tools to facilitate ongoing conversation and decisions. But all of that is just sort of continuous and ongoing. And from our perspective, a really critical piece of making sure that we're actually reaching those equitable outcomes we're striving for.
Great, thanks. And the other, I was also just wondering about, because some cities outside the city of Seattle also fund childcare resources for, for subsidies, which and I'm just wondering, should they stop, or are they going to get twice as many, vouchers, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so those are kind of program implementation questions that we are, that we're working through with CCR. But the way we're sort of looking at it is that, except for working connections, which has to be like the first in scholarship if a family is eligible, Best Starts for Kids is happy to be next. And we, so if a family receives Best Starts for Kids, if another subsidy wants to pay the copay that exists for a family from Best Starts, they can do that, but we won't do the other way around. So Best Starts for Kids will provide the subsidy that we will provide, and then let the other programs decide whether they want to make up the difference, or if they want to take that and serve a family that isn't eligible for Best Starts for Kids, or that they want to wait and have that funding available in the event that BSK is on a wait list at some point. I would say, I think that we could absolutely add any money that municipalities want to this particular program, and we could earmark those for residents of those municipalities. And then I think we would have a really efficient use of those funds, and we would be sure that, that we are actually expanding access for families in the municipalities that are able to fund their families. To answer your next question, undocumented families are absolutely eligible and really encouraged to apply. We do not ask about citizenship, and we know that this is one of the major gaps in Working Connections eligibility, because children have to be legal residents to qualify for that.
Katie, can we pause for 1 second? Can I go back? Because Alaric asked one specific explicit question, and I want to give you an explicit answer, which was, should you stop?
No.
And from our perspective, our answer is no. We hear from families every day about need. We hear from providers every day about need in the families that they serve. And so often providers who are already undercompensated are making up the difference for those families when they're not eligible for other resources. We really believe that the way that we're going to get to a sustainable and equitable system, at least at this time until there's broad investment at a federal level, is really by all of us bringing the resources that we can to this and working in a coordinated way to do so. So just wanted to actually give you an explicit answer on that, which is no, I don't think you should stop. And we are happy to continue these conversations.
All right, thank you.
Any idea how quickly these 2,000 slots may fill up? We're figuring that out at the moment. You know, we know from experience that a lot of people who are seeking support, paying for subsidy or paying for childcare, they may not have a slot yet. And so we know that some of the people that we offer care to, we offer funding to, it may take them a really long time to find a childcare provider. They may not find a childcare provider. So we are anticipating that it may take a little while to actively have all of these slots filled where the family has a childcare provider and we're paying the childcare provider. So we really anticipate that, and that was something I wanted to say too, is we anticipate being able to recruit for the program for another couple months probably. And then we anticipate having a wait list, but we also anticipate, we know that there's movement, people have their lives changed, they move, their kids have different needs. And so we anticipate there will be always a lot of churn in those slots, and that we will always need to be pulling families from the wait list and putting them into slots that have recently been vacated. The priority populations are not in order of importance. I think we recognize that each of our priority communities has different needs based on the individual needs of families. And so I think to a large extent, it's for each priority community tailoring what outreach needs to look like, what support needs to look like, and how our program can be really responsive to the needs of families who have had the hardest time accessing care in our community.
So it's more about kind of the outreach part. It's not like I've got two families who are on the wait list, and this one has a disability and that one is a recent immigrant family or whatever. It's not that. It's you really want to focus your outreach to get to those families. Okay, great.
What if a family needs assistance but can't get to one of the community partners? So our subsidy administrator, Scholar Fund, has a customer service line that any family can contact either on the phone, by text message. They also have an email address. And if they simply reach out to that in that way, they will be connected to someone who will reach out to them. So, they could talk to someone on the phone, they could talk to someone over text message if they're not able to, physically get to one of the community partners. We're trying to be very multimodal in our support for families because we know that getting places physically is challenging, especially when little kids are involved.
And I will just add that if a family speaks a different language, we also have translation and interpretation services through those, the number, the texting, or the email. So this can be any family that reaches out that way.
Alec, I do want to go back to one question you had about prioritization. We are, in the event that we are oversubscribed for the subsidy, which we are not currently, we do have mechanisms in place for a segmented lottery. So what that would look like is looking at the distribution of eligible families across the county. So based on census data and the families in King County that we know fall below that 85% state median income, that the segmented lottery would yield a distribution of families in the subsidy program that reflected the regional distribution of the county. And that it also reflected the income distribution of the county of those same eligible families, so that we're achieving some balance both in family incomes and the region of the county. We also have identified some of the priority communities that we would offer automatic inclusion for. So an automatic invitation, because we know that they have the hardest time accessing care, and we want to make sure that they have the full support and the full the full resources of our family access and support team to be able to try to find care. Some of those communities are families who have a child. They've disclosed they have a child with a disability. We know that that is a massive barrier to families finding care. Another is families who've had a child who's been expelled from care. That's another big barrier to a family, finding a placement. And then another one is families who've indicated that they've experienced violence, whether that is community violence, domestic violence, because we know that in families that have been exposed to violence, oftentimes childcare can be an incredible protective factor for the children who are living in that family that has been exposed to the trauma of violent circumstances. So those are just some ways that we've thought out how we would deal with having way more families than we are able to serve, which is not currently the case.
Thanks, Katie. Any other questions today?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, we remain, I think, happy to continue conversations, and we'll probably also continue to proactively reach out to partners across the county to sort of seek ongoing feedback and partnership. But always feel free to reach out if you have questions. This will be posted on the Best Starts blog, and if you are willing to share with your own networks and families in your community who might benefit from this program, we would really love your support in getting the word out.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks, Alaric. Nice to see you.
Bye.